You're young.
Listen, before we started, he just like, how old are you, 62?
He is young.
I said 53, and he's like, oh. No.
No offense.
No, this is what does the news.
So
Looking at
good.
news every day.
Yeah.
This is what it does to you.
You look good.
You can't. No, I'm not going to let you off the hook.
All right.
I'm not going to let you off the hook.
But you can ask your assistant. Is Keddy? Keddy took me backstage. I said, Glenn looks good. It's the truth.
Right.
It's the truth. Shall we start again?
No, I'm not going to let you off the hook. So, Nick is. How did we meet? It's, through a friend. Do you remember?
Geez.
It's been like 6 years or so. And
I don't remember.
You know, I think it's because I had seen, what was the Butterfly movie?
Oh, Butterfly Circus.
Yes, I think I'd seen that
The
and
short
asked
film on
somebody, and
YouTube.
they hooked us up. If you haven't seen Butterfly Circus,
thank you. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
It'll
it's great.
change your life.
And it's a short film, and you star in it, and you're
32
really
film
good.
festivals, Clint Eastwood's first short film award. 80 million people watched the short film, and we're about to do hopefully a feature film in 3 years.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Changed many teenagers' lives.
Yeah, it's game changing.
Thank you.
You are a guy who you were born with no arms and no legs. No news to you. Wait, what happened? But you look good. No,
Thank you. Thank you. Am I young?
Yeah, you look really young. And you
Look, you got more hair than me, though.
you struggled. You were suicidal. Tried to
Yes.
kill yourself.
I did. Age 10.
When did that turn for you?
You know, going through ages 8 to 12, went through a very dark, deep place, and didn't tell anybody. Didn't even tell my parents that I attempted suicide.
And that was at 8, wasn't it?
That was 10?
10.
Thought of suicide at 8, attempted at 10. Didn't tell anybody till 21.
Oh my gosh.
So I kept it.
Alone the whole time with that?
Well, I didn't feel isolated from age 13. Let me tell you what happened. I actually, the first turning point, you might chuckle, and it's a good thing to chuckle at. I was playing soccer one day, and I love my little foot. You know how much I can do with this little thing. I was on the soccer field, bent it backwards on itself, sprained it, was in bed for 3 weeks, staring at the ceiling and saying, you know what, my dad's right. Either I can complain about what I don't have or be thankful for what I do have. Do your best and God will do the rest. And that was the first turning point to realize, you know what? It's not the end unless I say it's the end. And at age 15, I read John chapter 9, a man was born blind. No one knew why he was born that way. Jesus said it was done so that the works of God would be revealed through him. Now, Jesus doesn't sit the blind man down and say, hey, my name's JC, Mr. Blind Man. I'm going to give you a facial. I'm going to spit in the dirt, put mud on your face, and when we're done, you're going to see. He didn't tell him the plan. My problem, Glenn, was that I wanted to know God's plan.
Yeah.
But if God told me the plan, what's the point of faith? The pinnacle of our relationship with Jesus, with an invisible God that unconditionally loves us, is not when he gives us all the blessings. It's when, despite sometimes where he doesn't make sense, we still worship him and say, thank you, God, you're faithful. That's the pinnacle of my joy, to know that despite what I see, despite my circumstances, even when I don't get a miracle, I can still be a miracle for somebody else.
Yeah, you are really, truly a miracle.
God
You
is
are.
awesome.
Yeah.
God is all by his grace.
Yeah. And you didn't think you would have any of it. I mean, you didn't think you'd
None.
get married, you wouldn't have children. You have 4 children, just had
4 children.
2 twins. And
Don't I look good?
They're beautiful. They look very young. Look at there's the picture. They look very young.
Oh, I love it. No, my wife's a rock star. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's great.
2 boys, 2 girls. Just can't fathom how beautiful my life is right now.
When I saw you last time, you didn't have any children.
Yeah.
And we talked about, that you, at the time wondered about, not being able to hold them or hug them.
Right. For me, the pinnacle of life was to find love and be loved. And when I saw girlfriends and boyfriends holding hands, I'm thinking I can't do that. I realized today I don't need hands to hold my wife's hand. I just need to hold her heart, and you don't need arms and legs for that. And when I was worried about how I'm going to hold my kids to comfort them when they go through suffering and pain, when they're crying, they come up to me and hug me with their arms. And it's just been a joy to even see my oldest son come up with games that no one with arms and legs would play, but I could play with him. It's very creative, very beautiful, and it's a miracle right there.
Before we talk about the book, do you what's a percentage of people that you meet and you're like, I mean, you're just a complainer? That you see people and you're like, you are so much more than what you realize, and you just won't get out of your way. Do you know what I mean?
I get it. I love that. But there's another category of people I get angry more at. So first of all, I always tell people, because I've been in front of 650 sex slaves, okay, who've been sold by their own mother for $700 at age 10. And you can't tell them to be any other religion, because when you actually look up all the other religions, I'm not putting down religions, but what would you tell 650 slaves? When you research it, Jesus is the only answer and redemption. And so, number one, first of all, I don't compare my suffering to somebody else. And yeah, you're right. Lack of reaching your full potential grieves me. Grieves me. But you got to still love him, and you got to sometimes lovingly, kick him and wake him up and shake him up, right? For me, I think the greatest wake-up call for anybody to get out of that is to actually go and see pain with your own eyes. Take your teenagers. It might be the best trip you'll ever invest. Forget about a vacation. Take them on a missions trip. And don't just take them down to build a house in Mexico. No. Go down to the orphanage in Tijuana, where there are single mothers and children who are infected with HIV/AIDS, dying. They have medication that could be given to them by the church. But the church says God's actually punishing you for the sin, so we're not going to give you the medication. That's the orphanage I'm going to take my boy when he's 13 years old, to understand, you know what, it's not about me, and what I can get, what I can feel, and what everyone thinks of me. It's about how can I make the world a better place. We're on mission, Glenn. You know it. You know that you're another person standing in front of the gates of hell and redirecting traffic. And it gets hot sometimes, and it gets burdensome sometimes. But we know that God carries our burdens, and when we open our mouth, God gives us the words, and we just got to do our best and trust Him in the rest.
So tell me about the book. Be the hands and feet.
Look, it's very, in a simplistic way. The simplest example: when you're at a grocery store and a 17-year-old, your cashier counter person, and she's looking down and she's not looking at you, and you're busy on your phone, put your phone down and look her in the eye and say hi. Because you don't know if she's being verbally abused at home, or she sees the alcoholic father abuse her mother and she blames herself for it, and the voices in her head are saying, you might as well disappear, no one's even looking at you in the eye and acknowledging given your existence, why don't you commit suicide? Wherein then you can look her in the eye and say, hi. It's not the heart to say, hi. You look beautiful. Can I pray for you? What's the worst thing that can happen if you ask someone, can I pray for you? They say, no. You know what I say when that happens? Well, then when I go in the car, I'm going to pray for you from my car. And they can't stop me. You know the Christians, Glenn, that go to church and say, hi, God bless you. I love you with the love of the Lord. And I'm praying for you. They're lying. They lie in your face. I'm praying for you. I'm like, you're in church. How can you lie in church to me as a Christian? Because you're worried about what I think of you? No, don't you dare tell anyone that you're praying for them unless you're praying for them. Out of all the generations that have gone by, we have the least amount of excuse in where the rubber hits the road. There's 111,000 children waiting for adoption in America. There are 100,000 churches that could take one child each. And I'm all for international missions, but in my book, I outlay, let's get real. Let's get real. Can you as a believer tell me in 3 minutes, who were you before you met Jesus? And who were you after you met Jesus? Tell me that, just very simple. Evangelism isn't that hard. And when the questions come saying, well, I believe science explains everything, I believe God's an unfair God because of the pain in the world, there's actually answers that are biblically backed up that you can persuasively, without bullying, without being crafty, there are answers to questions in the Bible. And when you,
I love
can
the way
you
say
imagine
that? Can
that?
you imagine? It's only been around for,
Right.
I think it's been in print for a few years, maybe a couple of decades.
Yeah, just a couple.
Because it's good.
It's there.
Yeah.
And when you can actually ask God for that wisdom and saying, okay, well, when someone says this, then I can say that. Not to say I'm going to take over the world and I'm ready for any attack and any question. No, it's because when you look at people in the eye, their soul is either saved, restored, and redeemed, or not. And if I don't tell them about the love of Jesus Christ, if I don't show them love, if I don't ask, can I pray for you, who will? And the bottom line, when I see God face to face, he might say, well done, my good and faithful servant. And to every believer, the book basically sums it up all in this. Look over the shoulder, he looks over my shoulder and says, who else did you bring?
I am sick of the Christians who want to save me and talk to me about the Bible, and they're praying for me, whatever, that are not any different than anybody else walking down the street. And I can't judge people, et cetera, but statistics show we're not, as Christians, we're not any different currently in America. It's a really, that's a problem, because we're just going to church and then we go Monday and we do whatever everybody else is doing, and there is no difference between us. And yet, I think we get a bad name because we're really willing to tell people when they're wrong. You said this a minute ago. Just love people. Just love them. And if you're not sincere and if you can't find...
Even in the church, love people, in the church. I'll interject here, if you don't mind. When someone gives their life to Jesus in a church setting, they say, wonderful, awesome, let's put you in a cell group. But they don't sit down and talk to you and say, hey, so tell me about your life. Oh, really? That happened to you? Oh, well, let's talk about that and let's counsel. I can go into a cell group. You're familiar with the terminology, cell group in the church? It's like this Bible study in the Protestant realm. Let's go to cell group, couple people. I can go in front of 7 or 8 men, meet with them for 8 years straight, and I can still hide anything I want in my underpants until someone looks at me, Glenn, and looks me in the eye and says, hey, how are you? How's your marriage? How's your kids? Are you burnt out? When was the last time you read the Bible? What is God teaching you? God forbid someone asks anybody. It's time to get real. And I just feel like so many Protestants are dividing, well, who's who and who's what. No, are you kidding me? There's going to be a lot of Catholics who go to heaven. There's going to be a lot of Orthodox who are going to heaven. We're going to be surprised. And we're going to focus on trying to stop dividing, love, come together. How much more persecution, how much more turmoil in the world will we have to have before we have the God of Abraham, the Jews, the Catholics, the Orthodox, and all the people who believe in Jesus to come together and say, the United States of America, we should read a manifesto, let's fast and pray, because like never before, we need God.
Nick, good to see you.
Glenn, I love you. God bless you.
You're a good man.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the inspiration.
Thanks for having me on the show, and God bless all your viewers.
And you look so young.